right here, these are just Amazon Prime boxes and gifts and stuff. I don't say they represent something. In fact, I wish I had 12 of them up here because they represent where we're headed and what we're going into and why we are so distracted right now. So all of these things have led me to something. When I'm on Amazon Prime, when I'm on Amazon, I come to realize pretty quickly that my TV's not big enough. My TV's not big enough. My cell phone is almost a year old. I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying. And here's the thing, as I look on Amazon Prime, I discovered something last week I didn't even know was true. I need fishing pants. I don't fish, but I'm going to tell you, these things change your life. If you get the right waders, they call them, fishing pants. And did you know this? I didn't know this. I need a barn. I need pottery for my barn. And I don't even have a barn, but I was looking at some ads, and they were so beautiful, and I thought, I want some of those things. Do you ever find yourself clicking on things that you didn't intend to click on and going places you didn't intend to go because you were drawn in? Yeah, that's a trick. And it draws all of us in. And I found out that I'm the biggest loser there is because I'm not wearing the right stuff. This stuff is what I was wearing 2 or 3 years ago, which is completely unacceptable. You know what I'm saying? And I'm distressed with the fact that I may not have some things that other people have. And you and I are constantly being dissatisfied with what we have because we're living in a culture that always, daily reminds us of what we don't have, what there is that we need that we don't have. Am I right? Can I get an amen or yeah? Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. Now listen, everywhere we go, we're being reminded of what we don't have. On the way home today, I will look at cars and I don't have that. And people in this area, they will drive super fancy cars. And they will look at you snugly as they drive by you. I don't think they do, but I just see it that way. And people have stuff that I don't have. And people have stuff that you don't have. And if we're not careful, and this is the truth, if we're not careful, if we don't pay attention, this can easily become the season of discontentment. It just can. It happens without even trying. Dissatisfaction with what we have and what others have that we can't afford. And this is the season that we're reminded that everything we have really should be upgraded about now. I mean, we just came out of Black Friday. Did any of you go into Black Friday knowing you had a list of things that you needed? I actually wait all year to buy things on Black Friday. I do. I wait to buy socks till Black Friday. I mean, I got a list. I'm embarrassed to show you. I have a list. I can't get everything on the list, but it's stuff like, clothing and stuff. And, Old Navy goes half price, 50% off. And so that's when I'll buy that pair of jeans that I get that year. And all the places that I go and everything that I do, I'm constantly reminded I don't have everything that I want. Now, many of you are going to have a really hard time believing what I'm about to say, okay? But it's true. I promise you. Once upon a time, people actually used to use things until they broke. No, seriously, I know they'd use things until they broke. We don't do that anymore, do we? I mean, okay, maybe on occasion, but we don't use things till they break. We use things till we upgrade the thing. And then, because it's smart, because then we have an extra in case the thing that we have that we've upgraded to breaks. That's our justification. People actually used to use things until they broke, and I know, get this, when they broke, they did something really strange. Ready for this? They fixed them. They fixed them. When was the last time you fixed something? Now, I have an uncle it's a friend who has an uncle who actually replaced the battery in his iPhone. I didn't know anybody, but I heard about someone who did replace the battery in his iPhone instead of actually getting an iPhone. They would fix it. I mean, come on. Isn't the greatest thing about when something breaks, you get a new one? Isn't that how it works today? We're in an upgrade culture. We're in a gotta-have the brand new thing culture. And here's something that's just weird. When people want to do a unique job, they want to hang something or do something, people used to actually go out and find something in their garage that would work. I saw a guy who took a license plate and he mounted a camera on the license plate for his little storage area because he didn't want anybody to steal his stuff. But the bracket was $29, so he took a license plate and drilled some holes and hung it there. I mean, come on. We don't do that anymore. We buy the bracket. And my problem is that everywhere I go, every day, I see something that I need that I don't have. And I didn't even know I need it till I saw it. But now I know I need it because I saw it. And what adds to this problem is that when I'm buying something, now what I'm looking at is related to something else that I've already seen, and there it is. It's related to something else, and it's on the page. And how did they know this? And here's the thing. What somebody else bought, they have a list of other things they bought with those things, and it's on the same page. And see, when I look at all that, I don't know about you, but I'm 4 levels in. I'm 4 levels deep into stuff I didn't plan on buying, and I'm looking at stuff, and I literally have to stop myself. Stop yourself, Rick. Go back to the one little item, the batteries you got online to buy. And how can anybody be content, you folks? Listen, how can anybody be content in a world that constantly dangles stuff in front of us? Stuff that we don't have, stuff that we might need. Stuff that I didn't know I needed, but now I need badly somehow. And the real problem, if you think about it, is not what we have. It's what we could have. It's what we could have. What you see that others have. And I want to share something with you that's really true right now. It's a huge, major truth. Whether you're a Christian or not, if you're watching online and you're a Christian or a believer or not, this is true for you regardless. Ready? Here's the statement. Awareness fuels discontentment. Did you know that? Awareness fuels discontentment. There are things that I never, ever considered having, and when I became aware of them, I was shocked. Somehow they know when I'm online that I'm a musician and I like to buy musical stuff. So literally every several ads, every several things that I scroll, that I'm looking at your posts and I'm encouraging, oh, that's really cool. There's a Guitar Center ad. There's an ad about drum tracks. There's an ad, and these people know how to draw me in. And I got to tell you something, it's very difficult to avoid that stuff. They know what I like. It's amazing. I go looking online for one thing. I'm online. I'm not on Facebook. I'm online looking for this thing. And then that night, 12 items that relate to this thing are on my feed. I think that's amazing. And here's the thing. Awareness fuels discontentment. And that's why we're so discontent. And this explains why, listen, getting more stuff doesn't actually solve the problem of discontentment. Getting more stuff doesn't actually make you feel like you got enough, does it? I don't need any more stuff now because I got what I needed. That's not how we function. It doesn't even reduce the appetite when you get more stuff. Appetites don't work like that. Our desire for stuff is an appetite. Now, anybody have an appetite here in the room, like a food appetite? I have a serious food appetite. I mean, does your appetite, anybody here, I don't know, it's not me, but some of you maybe, your appetite drives you? I see your appetite, will it drive you to a restaurant when we're done here today? It will drive me someplace. Probably Santos, because they have the most affordable, appetite-pleasing stuff in the area I can think of. And like any appetite, what happens to it? If you feed it, what happens to it? It's not satisfied. It is for a minute, but it grows. Feed an appetite, and it grows. I mean, just because you just had a meal doesn't mean you're not going to eat any more today. In fact, your refrigerator will have a body growing out of it because your head will be sticking in it in about 3 hours. And you'll be looking for more food. Your appetite doesn't fix you. It just buys a little more time. And feeding it doesn't shrink it. It actually expands it. And we live in a world today where every single day somebody's trying to feed an appetite that you have. And we're never, ever, ever, ever fully satisfied. Our dissatisfaction, it's constantly being stirred up by all the things that we don't have. And I'm not calling commercials evil, all right? I'm not, because I don't think they all are. And I'm not calling advertisement agencies evil, but there is something unsettling about too much credit card debt, right? Can you agree with that? And there's something disturbing about having lots of stuff sitting around your house that you're not even using, and you have no savings because of all the stuff that you have that you're not using. And it's a lot harder to find financial peace when you can't save because you buy everything you want now. And there's something troubling with the fact that I've acquired so much stuff that even if I feel gracious in my heart, I can't be generous with my funds because I have so much stuff, and there's so much more stuff that I'm trying to get, and I plan to get, and I really want to get. that there are no funds left for me to express my generosity. Therefore, I may feel generous, but I'm not generous. Listen, here's the thing. I want you to know this today. Every one of you in this room, I would expect, maybe not all of you, but probably most of you, you have something on a list in your brain that you want. Something that you want. And I want to say today, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a list. There's nothing wrong with wanting something, especially if you need it. But there's a problem when the focus of our lives becomes upgrades, constant upgrades. And if you're 50 and over, maybe even 45 and over, this is not landing on you quite as strongly as it is on everybody else. But I'm even in that place. I'm 59 years old. I'm in a place where I'm right there along with the 28-year-old. You know, I'm looking online constantly. Everything I do is online, so I'm tempted constantly to go get stuff. I literally, a month ago, my son Kanan got a new guitar. It's this Taylor. It's just the best guitar ever. And I want one really bad. And I told him, I'm going to get one of them. You know what? I'm older now. I should be able to get what I want. I'm going to get me. So I went looking for it. He got his for $1,100 on a great sale. $2,800. So how did he get such a good deal? He waited and he prayed. And he's our worship leader. And he didn't even buy it. He sold us our keyboard and we bought him a guitar. $1,100. I had to have that guitar. I didn't get it. Can I tell you something really embarrassing? I'll be honest with you. Black Friday came, and I looked at my TV, and I decided it's not good enough. Because 4Ks now are out. 4K! And all I have is 1080p. Now, 1080 sounds bigger than 4, doesn't it? But it's not. Because when you go into the store and you look at the picture, it just grabs you. It just pulls you close and says, don't you want me? And I say, yes, I want you bad. And I literally said to somebody, I don't know who it was, I said, I'm getting me a 4K TV. It was probably one of our elders meetings, if I'm not slow. I'm going to get me a 4K. They said, what do you want that for? I said, because I have a 1080p now. And they said, seriously? And I went, yeah, I guess it sounds bad, doesn't it? And I actually started looking for somebody who had an account with Sam's Wholesale, if I could use your account to get that, because I don't have a Sam's Wholesale. I had a BJ's. Sam's sales are bigger than BJ's sales. And I had to look in the mirror and say, what am I doing? It was 3 years ago that I waited in line for 6 hours with friends to get a 65-inch 1080p television. And I'm not sorry I did. Everything's bigger. But now I waited like 5 years. I was watching our 65-inch DLP broke. And I fixed it twice with new bulbs. This couldn't be fixed because it's the color wheel, and that's expensive. So I waited, and I had a little 24-inch on our 24 inches. That's embarrassing. People come over and see that, and they go, who are you? I have a 24-inch TV. But I know, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited for Black Friday, and Black Friday came, and I waited in line for 6 hours, and I met a guy, I can't forget his name, anyway, cool guy, and we're talking, this black dude, and we start hitting it off, we're laughing, and we get the TVs, we're like, we got the TV, and then he looked at me and said, I can't get this home, I have a Toyota, and it's really small, and this TV's bigger than his car, and so I ended up taking it home for him. He came to the church when he lived in town. We became friends. It was a great thing. Why do I want a 4K just a couple years later? My 65-inch 1080p works fine. Because this sucks us in. And we don't even realize that we're getting sucked in, and we are. And you know what it does? It doesn't mean we're going to have everything we want, does it? But it does mean there's a settled part, and there's a discontentment. I wish if only others do and I can't. Why? And it messes with us. And it positions us in life not really to be appreciative people, doesn't it? There's nothing wrong with having what you want. But this focus on upgrades and always having something new is destructive to us. Not all discontentment, I want to add this caveat, okay? Not all discontentment is bad. We know that, right? There are some discontentments that actually are beneficial. If you have a bad habit and it affects maybe your job or it affects other people, and it's a bad habit, it's a destructive habit, it affects maybe your hopes or for the future or your potential, that dissatisfaction, discontentment should drive you to make a decision to change, right? There are times you looked in the mirror and said, I can't do this anymore. I got to change. I do it still a lot. I did it last night at midnight. I looked in the mirror and said, what's wrong with you? Because I had an impatient moment with my bride yesterday. I won't tell you the details, but she wasn't happy with me. And she told me on my phone she wasn't happy with me. Texting is great because you can tell people everything you want to say and not even look at them. It's awesome. This is great. And she did. And I read it. And so I told her everything I needed her to know because I can text it and I'm not looking at them. It's this great medium of telling people what you want to say without having to suffer the consequences immediately. And I'm looking in the mirror going, I don't like the way I act sometimes. Because under pressure. Anybody go to the B&A flea market? Anybody ever go there and see? Some of you see, look at you. We're just alike. We are. And I went there knowing that I needed a mattress for our bed because I'm making too much movement and it's waking my wife up. So we're getting these two separate mattresses. We're going to shove them together and then I can jump up and down and she'll never know. And I'm excited about it. And so I go to B&A to get this mattress. But you know what they do on Saturdays? They charge you to get in. $1. $1. Now, I had a gone Monday. I went last Thursday. I found the mattress. They charge you $1 to get in. This is disconcerting to me. I had to judge me. I got out of my car. I ran back. My wife's behind me, and I said, "Guy, I need $1." She said, "Okay." She gave me a 20, which I should have kept the change, but I didn't. And I get in there. By the time I'm in there, I'm already frustrated. Then when I get in, the mattress is wrapped in plastic. I'm going to have her lay on a mattress wrapped in plastic and say, "How does that feel, sweetheart?" She's going to go, "Gross." I'm going to go, "Well, that wasted a trip." And I found myself irritated. And there's a discontentment that you ought to have sometimes. Because it brings you to positive change. Did you know some of the greatest changes in the world? Diseases have been cured because people were discontent with letting an entire population of little children die. And water has been brought to villages because people were discontent and found ways to bring water to villages. People decided this should not be anymore. They became discontent and they brought change. But here's the thing. The people that often change the world. How many of you, wouldn't you like to be a world changer? I mean, somebody will remember you for something that you really helped human race. People that change the world make the world a better place. They make the world a better place are not controlled by discontentment that controls most people. People that do huge things that change are usually not controlled by the kind of discontentment that controls most people. I'm talking about people that they allow discontentment to drive them to make sacrifices necessary to do great and helpful things. And these people that are free from, oftentimes they're free from discontentment and that plagues the rest of us. We are plagued by discontentment, and it's fed by our culture. That doesn't make the culture evil. It makes us in a place where we have to make some changes. And right there is the secret to defeating this giant called discontentment. By deciding that I'm going to be content with what I have doesn't really help. Or deciding that I'm going to make this happen doesn't really help. You have to replace the discontentment. This is a principle that I learned from a guy named Rick Warren a long time ago. You just can't decide, I'm going to stop doing this thing. You've got to replace that thing. I'm not going to be discontent. I'm going to be content. I'm going to be content. It doesn't work. It works for a minute, but that night you forget. You've got to replace your discontentment with something. And when you do, listen, when you replace your discontentment with something that matters, you know what you're going to discover? Life. Seriously, talking about life. The life that Jesus said, he called it an abundant life. The life that God created you for. You'll discover that when you replace your discontentment with something else. Now, to make this really, really practical for us, all right? The Apostle Paul wrote some letters 2,000 years ago. And my wife and I were watching this channel yesterday. It was a public thing about Constantine and the apostles, and it's public, and it's not really Christian. So they really do their research to make sure all the facts were right. And we're watching it. We were amazed at how much of what we read in the Bible is now being documented in history and in anthropology. We're discovering that those guys who dig things up, what are they called? Those guys. They're discovering incredible things that verify biblical figures that people thought didn't actually exist. They were just biblical figures. And 2,000 years ago, Paul the apostle wrote to a young guy that he was training named Timothy a bunch of letters, and 2 of those letters actually survived. And they're included in what we now know is the New Testament. In this first letter to Timothy, Paul makes a statement about contentment. And it's so powerful that even if you're not a Christian, even if you don't care about the things of Christ, you'll find this to be packed full of really helpful truth. Now, we're going to jump in the middle of a conversation that Paul's having right here, okay? In 1 Timothy 6:6, Paul says to Timothy, training him, helping him understand what life is about and who God is. He said, but godliness with contentment is great gain. Would you read that with me? Everybody out loud. Say it good and loud. Ready? But godliness with contentment is great gain. One more time. Put my pauses in. But godliness with contentment is great gain. Paul says, let me tell you how to get more out of life. And the word gain is where we get our word mega. It's where we get our English word mega. So godliness, what is that? Don't be afraid of that. Some of us are godliness, that's like, Paul the apostle, Jesus, godliness, don't think I can measure up. Don't be afraid of it. It just simply means God-likeness. Well, that's frightening too, being like God. But look, the New Testament teaches that the way you can be most like God is putting other people ahead of yourself. Did you know that? It's not, creating mountains and doing holy acts. It's not hiding yourself in a cave somewhere. It is actually being most like God is actually putting other people ahead of yourself. That is God-likeness. It's being more loving. Because what is God? Because God is love. You're more loving, you're more sacrificing, you're more giving, you're becoming more like God. So the more loving you are and the more giving you are, the more people will see, they'll see in you something that they're not seeing anywhere else. Because seeing someone who's like God, it's an amazing thing. What if you were in elementary school or junior high school or high school and you were more like God than anybody else around you? What would that say to your friends? Honestly, I'm going to tell you something. That's right. Yes. Cheer me on, baby doll. All of the things that you wish you could be, listen, man, all the things you wish you could be, like sought after, appreciated, liked, you would become those things if you became more godlike. You would. If you became more loving and helpful. I was such a loud, obnoxious kid in school. Nobody cared about what I thought because I just said so many things. When I gave my life to Christ and began to follow Christ as a sophomore in high school, something changed. And God helped me shut up. How practical was that? Rick, you should be quiet now. And you should listen more. And something shifted in my life, and I suddenly became, people were pursuing me. What do you carry a Bible for? Dude, what's that? And I would tell people, and suddenly I became interesting. How weird was that? Because I was not interesting before. And as I followed Christ more and more, and as you follow Christ more and more, really, seriously, when you read the Bible and you put the principles in your life, you will become more like God. And people will want to know you more. Some people will want to take you out because they don't like godliness and they think you're a threat to them and they're jealous of you. But many people will be drawn to you. Godlikeness. Being more loving. See, that's the gospel. That's the gospel. For God so loved the world that he gave. He gave. Jesus reversed the culture. Jesus shows up and he reverses the culture, guys. The culture was everybody get what you can for yourself. Even the Pharisees, it was all about themselves, showing off. And even it had trickled down into the culture, and everybody was about themselves, serving themselves. It wasn't. And they literally, if somebody was poor, they walked by them. You know what they thought? They didn't think, oh, bless his heart, how can I help? They thought, who sinned? Whose sin caused that? If somebody was blind or mute or poor, well, somebody in their family sinned. That's why that happened. And they would just keep walking. And Jesus Christ comes and reverses that. He stands it on its head because Jesus comes. He comes and he says, oh, you want to be first, you got to be last. You want to be noticed, you got to notice others. You want to be loved, you got to love others. You want to get some things you could never get, you got to give. Jesus stood the cultural understanding of what life was all about on its head. He reversed it. it was profound. Listen, nobody was saying what Jesus was saying. Everybody was going along with the flow. Don't we do that? We go along with the flow. Yeah, baby, just what everybody says, just go along with the flow. And Jesus reversed it. And look, you know what will happen in your life? You begin to pray to God, you begin to read his word, and you begin to apply that stuff to your life. I'm going to tell you something. You're going to go against this. You're going to literally begin to turn around slowly but surely, and you're going to be walking against the flow of culture. But as you do, you will have a strength you've never had. And you may get knocked down on occasion, but you will find yourself grabbing people, I'm spitting today, grabbing people and pulling them with you. You'll literally reach out and be pulling people with you, and it will be amazing, because 5 years, this is so cool, I'm getting excited. 5 years into your journey in Christ, you will have a string of people behind you, following you. Paul the Apostle said, imitate me, do what I do, because he was following Christ. And people will literally be doing what you taught them to do, and there'll be a line of them behind you. Wow, that's just cool stuff right there. 1 Timothy 6:6, Paul said, but godliness with contentment is great gain. And he tells us how to get more. And he says this. Paul says, if you want to gain a lot, here's how you do it. You pursue godliness, which means you put others first. And then you decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to put others first. Oh, I'm going to really do something weird here. I'm going to be content with what I have. Say what? Yeah, I'm not only going to put others first, I'm going to take myself off my list. And I'm going to be content with what I have. What if you could do that when you were in junior high school? What if you really, seriously, in your workplace, what if in your home with your family, you could be content? How much would that change how you live and how you act? Most wars have been fought. Most divorces have happened. Most families have been shattered because people become selfish and self-serving. I told a good friend one time, I said, you're about to lose your husband and your 4 kids. You're about to lose them all because you're putting yourself on the throne of your life, so to speak. And she said, you know what? I'm not going to be a Mother Teresa. And it broke my heart. And within 3 months, she had lost her husband and her children, and they didn't respect her to that day. And to this day, some of her kids still don't respect her. And she's still living a life that's self-focused and self-centered. And it breaks my heart. And I pray to God that she'll come back around. But you may, who is he talking about? I can name 12 people that I've seen do that. And then I love what Paul does. Paul says, 1 Timothy 6:7, for we brought nothing into the world. I love what he's saying here. Telling us, he starts off by saying, godliness with contentment is great gain. Great gain. Then he goes on, for we brought nothing into the world. This is 1 Timothy 6:7. And we can take nothing out of it. He's like, you're leaving this world with nothing. You're literally leaving everything. Whatever you acquire, whatever you pull together, whatever you fight for and struggle for, you're leaving all of it. You're taking none of it. Which brings us to a very disturbing question, and I hope this disturbs you today. And it should disturb all of us. Here's the question. Other than your stuff, what will you leave behind? Other than your stuff. What? And some of you are thinking, I don't have much stuff, but you got stuff. What will you leave behind other than your stuff? This question, folks, listen. I'm talking now to, this is to Jesus followers. This is the Christians. That question, other than stuff, what am I going to leave behind? It should be front and center in your life at all times. It should be. And if you will allow this question, what am I going to leave behind, to be front and center in your life, I will make you a promise. It will curb your discontentment. It will curb your discontentment, and it will curb your need for more stuff. And your focus will go from more stuff and all of your needs to other people, and how to not give them all their stuff, but how to help them find what they really need that they're not looking for. And you might actually become one of those people to change the world around you. You may not discover water for a village, but you may help someone discover the answer to life and the secret to joy. And you may help them know who God is. And it changes everything for them. And they will literally point back to you and say, they did it. I have several people that I can point back to in my teenage years and say, it's because that guy showed up. And it's because that guy didn't leave when I was the obnoxious human being that I was. And it was because those two people came to my door and knocked on my door and took their time to invite me to a thing. And I went. And it was because that preacher guy didn't quit when everything was coming against him, because church work can be really nasty. I haven't found that to be here, but we planted this church. The churches that have been going for years, they can be really nasty. They can do a lot of damage. And pastors who stay and they give and they sacrifice, in spite of that, we can point to them often and say, yeah. And now Paul's going to tell us how to apply this to his life. He's going to tell us how he applies it to his life. See, Paul's traveling. He's always traveling with a guy named Silas. He's with Luke at times. He's traveling with people, and he's applying what he's saying to him. He's saying, but if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. If we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Paul's saying here, he's saying, this is as far as I've taken it. I've taken it this far. If I just have the basics of what I need, I'm not going to let anything else steal my discontentment. I'm not going to be distracted on all these other things that everybody wants. I'm going to be content with what I have because it's really great gain. So one would ask, what did Paul leave behind? I mean, come on now. Paul's greatly respected. What did he leave behind? If you know your history, you'll know that Paul was a very wealthy Jewish man. He was also, very rare, a Roman citizen. And he was well respected, and he was well positioned, and he was wealthy, and he left it all behind to obey God, to spread the message of Jesus Christ. So you may ask, well, what's Paul going to leave behind? What did he leave behind when he died? Let me tell you what he left behind when he died. He left behind letters that he wrote to people, to churches, letters that shaped the Western culture for 2 millennia. We are still reading the letters that Paul wrote today. Paul left behind a theology that was literally disrupt the Roman Empire. I was saying to you earlier that my wife and I were watching this show and it was about Constantine. And around 300 AD, this is just about 200 years after Paul lived, Paul's spreading the gospel. Paul's making sacrifices. Paul is ignoring all the things that he thinks that people tell him he should have, and all the chariots he should own, and all the cool houses he should live in. And Paul is sacrificing. And what did Paul leave behind? 200 years later, an emperor of Rome. Rome had been persecuting Christians. I'm talking about killing Christians, not just making them uncomfortable. Nobody got their electricity shut off. They got dragged out, and they got beat up, and they got killed. They got hung. My wife and I got to go to Rome last year. This year? Yeah, this year. Earlier. We saw the Colosseum where people were hung up on crosses. They were devoured by animals. This is what Rome did to Christians. Fast forward, after Paul spread the gospel and made his sacrifices, what did Paul leave behind? Constantine, the emperor of Rome, was ready to go to battle with his army. And he had a vision from God. You ever had a vision from God? It'll change you. It'll change you in ways that Paul had a vision. I know people who had visions from God. God has moved in my life, and other people in this room, I know your stories in ways that are profound. They're as powerful as any vision you could have. And Paul had a vision from God. This guy, Constantine, had a vision from God just before he went to war. And the vision said this: I'm Jesus Christ, follow me. If you will put crosses on all of your shields and go forward in the name of Christ, you will not only win this battle, you will win every battle that you go forward with. You know what happened? He did it. And what happened to Constantine? He was the coolest emperor. Now he's a Christian. And he went into battle, and all those people doubting him, shut up. Because he handily won that battle, and many, 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 many more. And literally, if you look into history, Constantine, from the time he had that vision to the time he died, followed Christ. At no point did he doubt his faith or turn away. He followed. I find that kind of stuff amazing. We need to capture what God put us here for. And I would ask you this question. What needs to capture your attention? What's got your attention now? What needs to capture your attention? What do we need to become more aware of? What do you need to become more aware of? Look, can I just ask an honest question for a minute? Do you really want to repeat the sins or the bad decisions in the life of your forefathers? I had to look in the mirror and ask myself that question in my early 20s. Do I really want to repeat the life of my dad, who did die an alcoholic? He wasn't as bad of an alcoholic as he had been earlier, but he was still a very sad alcoholic. He died in that. His father died having been unfaithful to my grandmother many times. Did I really want to repeat the sins of my fathers and the consequences of all that mess? Do I really want to repeat that? The poverty that keeps coming because I keep putting my focus on money? Do I really want to repeat that? Because you will repeat it. You will repeat it. When the scripture says that the sons, that sin carries down to the second, third generation, sin of the fathers carry down to the second, third generation. That's not a proclamation or a prophecy. It's just an observation. It's an observation. The sins of your mother, your father, your aunt, the people that shape your life, if you don't make a concerted effort for that not to be true, it will shape you and you will repeat the ugliness of their lives. Any good parent would look at your child and say, listen, sweetheart, honey, boy, son, don't do what I did. Look, let me show you what I wish I'd have done. And it's not easy to say that to a kid, when you've been not a great example and when you're still not being. But any good parent would say, look, here's how I think you could change. Do this, do this, do this. And you don't want to go repeating the journeys of your forefathers. So he goes on into saying this. I don't have time to finish this whole message, but 1 Timothy 6:9, Paul says this. Those who want to get rich, where do we shift our attention? What do we shift it away from? Listen to what he says. Those who want to get rich. Now, if I was to ask how many of you want to get rich, I would be interested to see how many of you would really like to be rich. How many of you, I'm not going to ask the question, but that would be interesting to see, because I think if you were all honest, most of you, maybe not all, but would go, yes, just give me a chance at it for a minute. Give me the taste, give me the feel for a minute, please. Those who want to get rich, this is Paul writing to a young man, fall into temptation and a trap. He's saying those who are targeting wealth for wealth's sake. In other words, people who are first in line of their own lives. They're first in line in their own lives. Those who prioritize themselves above others. They fall into a trap. And here's the thing. There are specific traps in life. And if I were to ask you, do you know what those traps are? The right answer would be nope. Because they're traps. Traps are set well. You don't see them. You stumble into them. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap. And that's why you think, if you know what, I don't know about those other people, but if I won the lottery, I could handle it. You think that. I've thought that. Painful question, let's be honest. How many of you actually prayed that you would win the lottery at least at one time or another? Come on. Just so you could do a lot of good with that money. Help a lot of people. Dear Jesus, right now, put my number above everybody. Oh, dear God, whatever it takes. Some of you are liars. Anyway. Truth is, you can't know how you'll handle a trap until you're in it. You won't know. You won't know how to handle it until it comes upon you. Some people that I know have navigated that trap of wealth very well. They've actually been able to, because of Jesus, they've not been ensnared by it. but even they will tell you it's difficult. You have to pay attention all the time. 1 Timothy 6:9. And into many foolish and harmful desires that, listen to this word, plunge people into ruin and destruction. Plunge, that's an interesting word. It means unexpected disaster. The desire for money and wealth has plunged people into harmful desires, many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into ruin and destruction. He's saying, listen, he's saying, unbridled discontentment is dangerous. Discontentment is dangerous. Being discontent at any point in life, it becomes dangerous because it points you in places you shouldn't go and brings thoughts to your mind that are not helpful, they're destructive. It will plunge you into debt. It will plunge you into not being able to be giving. It will plunge you into having things you probably shouldn't have. It will plunge you into not going where you should have gone. It will plunge you into more travel and less family. And then someday you'll look at your kids because you had all the money to travel, so you did, and they'll say, I don't even like you. Why? I've given you what I've raised you right. You never hear. You were on the top of your list. 1 Timothy 6:10. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Listen, here's the thing. You know you can't see the love of money in your own life? You know that? You can't see jealousy in the mirror. You can't see greed in the mirror. You never know when you have those. And you can't see the love of money in the mirror. You don't know when you have it. And Paul's saying the same thing over and over again so that we'll get the point. He says, how do you know if you have a love of money? I've actually never known anyone who said, you know what, I think my problem is I have a love for money. I've never met that person. So how do you know? Here's the question. What are you willing to do to get it? What are you willing to do for it? You'll do crazy stuff when you're in love. I did crazy stuff when I was in love. I called my wife at weird times of the night. I'm in Dallas, Texas. If they'd answered the phone, she knew to be waiting for that phone at 2 in the morning. She knew she was going to get these weird letters with lots of weird perfume and stuff on them. And I got letters back with dollar bills, and she put her, we did weird things. When you're in love, you'll do weird. You'll be extravagant. You'll be crazy when you're in love. And when you have love for money, you'll do some crazy stuff. 1 Timothy 6:10, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. And Paul says, but let me tell you what to do. This is the beauty of this passage. 1 Timothy 6:11. Listen closely. We're going to sum it up. He says, but you, man of God, women, do not be insulted. This is written to Timothy, but apply it to yourself. Paul says, but you, man of God, flee from all this. Like, run away, run away. Monty Python, Holy Grail, anybody? Yeah. Run away. Flee from all this and pursue righteousness. Being like God. Godliness. Doing what God did. Faith, love, endurance, and gentleness. Contentment is found by redirecting our pursuit. Contentment is found by you got to read that with me. You ready? Contentment is found by redirecting our pursuit. One more time, good and loud. Contentment is found by redirecting our pursuit. It is found by changing what you're pursuing. It doesn't just happen because you're a nice person. It's found by changing your pursuit. And he goes on to say, command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, not to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. God's saying, I want you to have stuff. I just don't want your stuff to have you. And now listen to how specific Paul gets. This is really good as we close this message. Verse 18. Command them, those who are wealthy, those who are not going to put their hope in their wealth, which is uncertain. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds. You look at people and go, wow, they're so rich. And somebody else says, yeah, but they do a lot for people. And they're so wealthy. Yeah, but you know what? They make a difference with what they have. Wow. Now listen to how Paul says this. Be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, what way? By refocusing. Refocusing from stuff. How much can I get? How much more can I get? By refocusing from stuff that you want and redirecting your thoughts into what he's saying here. Be rich in good deeds. Do good. Be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. Life becomes truly life when it's given away. Life becomes truly life when it's given away. The value of, these are great sayings, the value of a life is always measured by how much of it is given away. Did you hear that? The value of your life is measured by how much of it you've given away. We go back to the verse we started with. But godliness with contentment is great gain. So I'm going to ask you to do something. This is your assignment, okay? Would you please put something or someone ahead of yourself in your finances? Would you please put something or someone ahead of yourself? Some organization that's doing good, that really moves your heart. You put someone or something ahead of yourself and your finances? Would you begin today to give first to an organization or a movement or to people who are doing something that really does make a difference and you know it's true, and you get involved in their financial success? And if you do, what you have will never have you. And if you do, what you don't have will never bother you, or it won't bother you anymore. And you will lay hold of life that is truly life. So I'm going to lead you in a prayer today. Band's not going to come up today. We're just going to play some music because I've gone a little long. I apologize for that. I'm going to lead you in a prayer, just a simple prayer, okay? And it's just a prayer of surrender because, you know, where does faith start? It starts with an action. And often it starts with a prayer. So I want to lead you in a prayer. And just, if you would, recognize you're just going to approach God now with these requests. Here we go. Dear God, I ask you to help me right now. God, I want to know life. And I've become aware that I'm probably looking for it in the wrong places. And I have followed the example of others that I don't really want to be like. And I need your help. So God, would you right now forgive me for the things that I've done that have broken your heart, the things that I've done that are against your design for me when you created mankind. Forgive me for my sins. That's how they're called. All the things that I've done that I know were wrong. God, would you forgive me for those things? Jesus Christ, I want to put you in the forefront and in the middle of my life. I want to put you in the decision-making position of my life. God, I acknowledge you now. I put my faith and my prayer towards you now. Would you change me? Would you help me? I intend to follow Christ. Right now, tonight before I go to bed, I will pray again. Tomorrow morning, I will pray again, and I will begin to open up the New Testament and read your word. It's a good place to start. God, help me do that. And I will begin to do what Jesus teaches and what Paul the Apostle instructed the churches to do. God, help me do these things. And help me to serve other people, God, to love you first, and then to begin to love other people. And I pray these things because of